Let me ask you something right now, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself. Is your mind actually working for you, or has it quietly become your biggest obstacle? You wake up every morning already feeling the weight. Anxiety hits before you even sit up. The rest of the day is filled with pointless mental chatter, replaying yesterday's mistakes, dreading tomorrow's unknowns. And then at night, when you finally lie down, the same thoughts start spinning all over again. If any of this sounds familiar, here is the truth that most people are never told. Your mind is not broken. It has been poisoned, slowly, quietly, over years. And the most dangerous part? You have been calling it normal. But what if today was the day everything shifted? What if the thoughts that have been draining you, the fear, the self-doubt, the overthinking, the regret, what if you finally learned how to release them? Not suppress them, not ignore them, actually release them. What would your life look like if your mind was finally on your side? If every decision felt cleaner, if every morning felt like a genuine fresh start, if fear stopped being the invisible hand steering your choices. That transformation is exactly what this audiobook is about. And that journey starts right now. Today we are going to explore how negative thinking silently hijacks your decisions before you even realize it. We will uncover why overthinking drains your energy far faster than physical work ever could. We will examine how unresolved experiences from your past prevent you from living fully in the present. And perhaps most importantly, we will discover how you have unknowingly built a mental prison, one without walls or bars, but just as confining. Then we will go further. Because knowing the problem is only half the battle. You will learn how to detox your mind, how to lighten your thinking, how to rebuild your inner strength, and how to take back control of your own life. This is not content you just listen to and forget. This is content that is meant to be felt. Some of what you are about to hear may sting. Some truths may feel uncomfortably close to home. But remember, nothing changes until the truth gets uncomfortable enough to demand action. If you want your life to stop simply moving and start actually progressing in the right direction, then stay with this until the very end. And if content like this, the kind that doesn't just inform but genuinely transforms, is something you value, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe to MindPsychology, because there is so much more coming that you will not want to miss. Your mind has been accumulating toxins for years. Most people never even notice it happening because they have convinced themselves that the anxiety is normal, the overthinking is just part of being smart, and the constant low-level stress is simply the price of living in a fast-paced world. But here is what no one talks about. The human body gets cleaned every day. You shower, you eat well, at least you try to, you rest. But when was the last time you genuinely cleaned your mind? Not distracted it, not numbed it, actually cleaned it. And a toxic mind, no matter how talented, no matter how driven, will quietly sabotage everything it touches. This is why so many people who appear to have everything still feel empty inside. There is money in the bank, but no peace in the chest. There are people all around them, but still a hollow kind of loneliness. There are dreams written in journals that never seem to get off the page because somewhere deep inside, fear has parked itself in the driver's seat.
This is the exact space where the work of detoxing your mind becomes not just useful, but essential. The poison inside the mind does not arrive all at once. It builds gradually across years. It seeps in through childhood words that cut deep, through repeated failures that went unprocessed, through comparisons made in the quiet moments of scrolling through other people's curated lives. It comes through broken relationships, through harsh criticism absorbed without defense, through 100 small moments of feeling not enough. And slowly, without any announcement, those experiences stack inside the mind like layers of sediment, invisible, odorless, but suffocating. Most people assume that rest will fix it, that a weekend away, a good night of sleep, or a vacation will clear the weight. But rest alone does
not clean a poisoned mind. Understanding does. Because you cannot release what you have not yet identified. The questions that actually matter are the ones almost nobody asks. Where is this anger really coming from? Why does fear appear in situations that should feel safe? What is feeding the relentless loop of overthinking? Anger surfaces when expectations are repeatedly shattered. Fear takes root when trust in yourself has eroded. Overthinking begins when the mind has been consistently fed low-quality, high-stimulation content. Negative news cycles, trivial conflicts, other people's opinions absorbed without filter, and memories that should have been released long ago. Over time, the mind becomes addicted to this input. It begins to crave the chaos, the comparison, the complaint. And without it, something feels oddly missing. This chapter carries one central truth that changes everything once it lands. Your mind becomes exactly what you consistently feed it. Feed it complaints, and complaining becomes its default state. Feed it fear, and it will find danger in every opportunity. Feed it comparison, and it will never allow you to feel genuinely satisfied. The first step toward change is not motivation or discipline. It is ownership. The moment you stop believing that your mental state is determined by outside circumstances, you reclaim the ability to shape it. The world will continue to be what it is. People will continue to be who they are. But a clean mind experiences the same external world in an entirely different way. Lighter, clearer, more navigable. This chapter is not here to create guilt. It is here to create awareness. And awareness is where every real transformation begins. Negative thinking is not just an attitude problem. It is a deeply ingrained pattern, one that, once established in the mind, begins to filter every single experience through its particular lens. Without conscious effort to interrupt it, the mind starts searching for flaws in every opportunity, danger in every new situation, and fault in every person it encounters. Gradually, the conclusion that feels most natural is that the world is broken, people are unreliable, and luck simply does not favor you. But the world has not changed. Only your perspective has. Here is what makes negative thinking particularly deceptive. It rarely arrives through one dramatic, traumatic event. It builds slowly through repetition. through the quiet voice that whispers, "I am not capable enough. I will probably fail. What will people think if I try and fall short?" These sentences seem small. They feel like reasonable caution. But the mind does not process them as caution. It processes them as commands. And the more frequently those commands are issued, the more efficiently the mind executes them. You begin conceding defeat before the opportunity has even fully appeared. You talk yourself out of pursuing something before you have given yourself a genuine chance. You convince yourself that the dream was too large, the risk too significant, the timing too poor. And that quiet surrender, that is the most damaging defeat of all. What makes negative thinking especially cunning is that it convinces you it is protecting you. It frames excessive caution as wisdom. It says, "Do not get your hopes up too high because disappointment hurts. Do not invest too much effort because failure will damage you." But this is not protection. It is imprisonment. A cage with no visible bars, but a prisoner inside nonetheless. You remain technically safe, but you are not actually alive in any meaningful sense. You avoid the fall, yes, but you also never experience the flight. The cure for negative thinking is not positive affirmations layered over unexamined fear. The cure begins with honest recognition. The moment a negative thought surfaces, pause and ask yourself with genuine curiosity, is this actually true, or is this my fear narrating? Is there real evidence for this, or am I running a prediction based on old pain? Most of the time, when you investigate honestly, you will discover that the thought is not a reflection of current reality. It is a shadow cast by a past experience. And the moment you identify a shadow for what it actually is, it loses a significant portion of its influence over you. You are not obligated to believe every thought that passes through your mind. Thoughts are transient. They arrive and they depart. The choice to hold on to them, release them, belongs entirely to you. The more you practice allowing unnecessary, corrosive thoughts to pass without engagement, without argument, without resistance, the lighter your mind becomes. And a lighter mind begins to perceive life differently. Not because life has changed, but because you have. Negative thinking does not need to be fought. It needs to be recognized, and then quietly replaced by something grounded in truth and in genuine understanding. Now we arrive at the habit that is most commonly mistaken for intelligence. People who overthink often believe they are being thorough, careful, responsible. They believe that processing every angle, anticipating every outcome, and preparing for every possibility is a sign of a sharp mind. But the actual consequence of chronic overthinking is not sharpness. It is exhaustion. Mental exhaustion so complete that it begins to feel physical. You sit down to think through one situation, and before you realize what has happened, your mind has spent the entire day inside a single problem, analyzing it from 40 angles, most of them catastrophic. Your body is still. Your mind has run a marathon. The most damaging consequence of overthinking is not the fatigue, though the fatigue is real. It is the theft of your present moment. When your mind is perpetually processing the past or pre-suffering a future that has not arrived, you are absent from the only moment that actually exists. This one. The person in front of you receives a distracted version of you. The task in front of you gets done poorly because your focus is fractured. The mind keeps cycling through questions that begin with, "What if? What if this goes wrong? What if I make the wrong choice? What if it all falls apart?" But it almost never asks the only question that would actually move things forward. What is the single next step I can take right now? And when focus is pulled away from the present, mistakes increase. Those mistakes then become fuel for more overthinking. The cycle tightens, and breaking free begins to feel increasingly impossible. Many people believe that thinking longer and harder about a decision guarantees a better outcome. The reality is precisely the opposite. Excessive analysis paralyzes the decision-making process entirely. Too many options evaluated for too long results in no option feeling right. Too much dissection of a simple choice results in the kind of hesitation that costs real opportunity. Over time, you become someone who understands everything and acts on nothing. The mind does not actually need answers to every question it generates. What it needs is direction. Overthinking decreases the moment you stop chasing every thought that appears. When a thought surfaces that serves no present purpose, acknowledge it briefly and redirect. Not now. What I need right now is to stay in this moment and take one small step forward. The entire road does not need to be visible. The next turn is enough. When you stop entertaining every mental tangent, when you stop trying to keep the mind occupied every single second, something remarkable happens. The mind begins to settle on its own. A small amount of stillness, a touch of simplicity, and genuine presence in the current moment are the most powerful antidotes to chronic overthinking available. Rest does not come when you sleep. Real rest comes when you stop thinking unnecessarily. That distinction is one of the most important shifts you can make. Now we talk about the force that kills more dreams before they are born than any external circumstance ever could. Fear. Fear of failing. Fear of judgment. Fear of being laughed at. And the most corrosive fear of all, self-doubt. This particular fear does not announce itself loudly. It does not arrive with drama. It settles quietly into the architecture of your thinking and begins whispering at every crossroads. Don't try. Don't risk it. Stay where it's safe. And you listen, because fear has learned to disguise itself as wisdom. What most people never realize is that fear rarely originates from the present moment. Fear lives in memory. Someone told you once that you were not capable enough. You attempted something and fell short, and the experience left a mark that never fully healed. You compared yourself to someone else at a vulnerable moment and concluded, silently, that you were somehow less. That was the moment fear planted its roots, and from that moment forward, no matter how legitimate the opportunity, the mind reflexively returns to that old wound first and pulls back to protect itself. But here is the hard truth the author places directly in front of you. Fear does not protect you. Fear stops you. There is a fundamental difference between caution and paralysis, and fear erases that line entirely. Self-doubt is fear's most constant companion. When you do not trust your own judgment, every decision feels heavier than it actually is. You find yourself seeking reassurance from others repeatedly, and yet the reassurance never fully satisfies, because the real deficit is not information, it is trust in yourself. You can gather every piece of advice available and still feel uncertain, because the uncertainty is not about the decision in front of you. It is about your belief in your own ability to handle whatever outcome follows. As long as you continue defining yourself as someone incapable of handling difficulty, the world will reflect that belief back to you consistently. As long as you withhold permission from yourself to move forward, no external opportunity will feel accessible enough. The shift begins the moment you choose, not when you feel ready, because that feeling rarely arrives on its own, but when you choose to act despite the uncertainty. Every time you move forward while fear is present, the fear loses a small measure of its grip. Not all at once, gradually, but irreversibly. Most people carry two invisible weights with them every single day. One is the past, the other is the future. And the mind, left to its own devices, oscillates endlessly between the two, replaying what has already happened and pre-experiencing what has not arrived yet. The one place it consistently resists staying is here. Now. This moment. The past carries its own particular weight. Mistakes made, paths not taken, relationships that ended badly, decisions that, looking back, seem obvious in their wrongness. And that word, if only I had chosen differently, if only I had acted sooner, if only I had known what I know now. That phrase is perhaps the most exhausting two words in the English language, because it directs enormous mental energy toward a destination that is permanently closed. You cannot revisit the past to change it. You can only carry it forward as understanding, or drag it forward as punishment. One of those options builds you, the other one slowly dismantles you. On the other side sits the anxiety of the future. Career uncertainties, financial pressures, relationship unknowns, social expectations, all of it collapsing into the present moment simultaneously, creating a weight that belongs to a time that has not yet arrived. And the painful irony is this: by borrowing all of that future suffering and carrying it today, you impair your ability to handle today competently, which makes the future you feared more likely to occur. The author makes a point here that deserves to be held for a moment. The mind finds its deepest peace when it is confident that the present moment is manageable. Most anxiety is rooted in the feeling of being out of control. But here is what is actually true. The past was never fully in your control, and the future will not be either. The only thing genuinely within your reach is this moment. One decision now, one action now, one step now. When you begin to relate to your past as a teacher rather than a judge, its toxicity begins to diminish. When you begin to relate to the future as something to prepare for rather than something to fear, its weight becomes manageable. The mind must be gradually trained to release the compulsion to return backward constantly and to resist the pull of racing endlessly forward. Sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is stop, breathe, and remain exactly where you are. Life does not unfold in the past or the future. Life unfolds now. And the person who learns to handle now with full presence discovers that tomorrow takes care of itself with surprising reliability. Until now, we have identified the poison, understood its origins, and traced the patterns through which it operates: negative thinking, overthinking, fear, self-doubt, the weight of the past, and the anxiety of the future. Now comes the question that actually matters. How do you get out? Because recognizing a problem intellectually and dismantling it practically are entirely different things. Real change does not begin in your thinking. It begins in your habits. The mind thinks what its daily environment consistently produces. If your day is saturated with negative news, low-quality conversations, other people's opinions absorbed without discernment, and content designed to provoke reaction rather than reflection, your mind will remain cluttered, regardless of how much you want it to be clear. So, the first practical step is this: reduce the input. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every message requires an immediate response. Not every opinion needs to become part of your internal dialogue. Becoming selective about what enters your mind is not antisocial. It is essential maintenance. The second step is learning to tolerate silence. Most people in the modern world have developed a quiet fear of silence because silence removes the distractions that keep the mind from confronting what it is actually carrying. But that very discomfort is the signal. It is the mind asking to be cleaned. Begin with small windows of time. No phone, no background noise, no input. Just you, your breathing, and whatever surfaces. It will feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a sign to stop. It is a sign to continue. The third step, and perhaps the most liberating, is learning to stop giving every thought your full endorsement. You are not required to believe everything your mind produces. Some thoughts deserve your attention and careful consideration. Others are simply mental noise, old patterns running on autopilot, fears rehearsing familiar scripts. When a negative thought surfaces, do not attempt to crush it. Suppression does not work. Instead, acknowledge it without engaging. I see you, and I am choosing where to place my energy right now. Then redirect that energy into something real: movement, creative work, a focused task, intentional breathing. When the mind is given genuine direction, it stops wandering into territory that drains it. The central message of this chapter is not about achieving a perfect mental state. It is about becoming conscious. Conscious of what you are absorbing. Conscious of what you are rehearsing internally. Conscious of where you are directing your most valuable resource, your attention. The mind does not detox in a single dramatic moment. It detoxes gradually, through small, consistent choices made every day. But the moment you accept genuine responsibility for what lives inside your mind, something shifts almost immediately. A quality of lightness begins to emerge. Not because the external world has changed, but because you have decided to stop letting the external world dictate your internal experience. There comes a point in the process where something unmistakable begins to happen. The mind stops feeling like enemy territory. Thoughts that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Problems that once felt paralyzing begin to reveal their actual size, which is almost always smaller than fear made them appear. Life does not become problem-free, but your relationship to problems changes entirely. Where you once reacted, you now respond. Where you once felt swept away, you now feel grounded. That is the difference between a mind that has been left unexamined and a mind that has been genuinely worked on. A calm mind does not mean a passive mind. It means a mind that can encounter turbulence without being defined by it. The old version of you would have been destabilized by a critical comment, a sudden setback, an unexpected disappointment. The newer version encounters the same events and processes them differently, not because the events hurt less, but because the foundation beneath you is more solid. You have something to stand on. That stability is not inherited. It is built through exactly the kind of inner work this process represents. When the mind becomes cleaner, relationships follow. You stop relating to other people primarily through the lens of unmet expectations. You develop a greater capacity to understand without immediately needing to judge. You discover an ability to forgive, not because you are condoning what happened, but because you understand that carrying resentment costs you far more than it costs the person who caused the harm. You learn to release what no longer serves you. And perhaps most significantly, you learn to extend kindness to yourself. To recognize that not every day will be a good day, and that your value as a person is entirely independent of your performance on any given afternoon. A detoxed mind does not seek its worth from external validation. It does not need the approval of people who do not understand the journey it has traveled. It moves from a different center, one that is internal, stable, and genuinely its own. Now we arrive at the chapter that may be the most quietly radical of them all. Because everything we have discussed, releasing negative patterns, interrupting overthinking, confronting fear, letting go of the past, all of it leads to this: the possibility of an actual friendship with yourself. Most people spend their entire lives in a low-grade conflict with who they are. They are endlessly working to fix their flaws, overcome their limitations, and become someone more acceptable to others and to themselves. The result is a person who, from the outside, may appear to be achieving, but on the inside is perpetually exhausted and fundamentally lonely. Detoxing the mind ultimately means this: stopping the punishment and starting the understanding. It means recognizing that your mistakes are not your identity. You have fallen, but falling does not make you worthless. You have feared, but fear does not make you weak. You have hesitated, but hesitation does not make you incapable. These are human experiences, not permanent verdicts. The day you learn to stand beside yourself rather than against yourself is the day outside opinions lose most of their power over you. You stop needing everyone to agree with your choices because your choices are now grounded in something that belongs to you, your own discernment, your own values, your own understanding of what you are building. You set boundaries not from anger, but from clarity. You make decisions not from desperation, but from groundedness. Friendship with yourself also means accepting your limitations without using them as weapons against yourself. You release the compulsion to be exceptional at everything. You understand that consistency is more valuable than occasional brilliance. You recognize that some days the most courageous thing you can do is simply continue. Not dramatically, not perfectly, but honestly and with your full presence. The deepest truth in this chapter is this: real freedom is not something granted by circumstances. It is not found in a particular achievement, relationship, or status. Real freedom is generated from within. In the moment you stop being enslaved to your own thoughts, in the moment you stop running from your own fear, in the moment you stop treating your past as a life sentence. That interior freedom is what allows you to breathe fully, decide clearly, and live on your own terms, rather than the terms that fear and habit have quietly set for you. And now, the final chapter. Because every process of genuine inner transformation eventually arrives at the same question: what happens after? What does life actually feel like when the work has been done? Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly and consistently enough that something real has shifted. The answer is not what most people expect. Life after detox is not a life without difficulty. It is a life in which difficulty has lost its ability to define you. Problems arrive. They always will. But they no longer feel like evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you or your life. They feel like events that require a response, that carry lessons, that will eventually pass. You stop treating every obstacle as a catastrophe and start treating it as information. That shift alone transforms the quality of daily experience more than almost anything else. A mind that has been genuinely cleared stops hemorrhaging energy on things that do not merit it. You become selective in a way that feels natural rather than defensive. You understand that not every conflict needs your engagement. Not every criticism needs a response. Not every loss needs to be carried forward indefinitely. Your attention, your most finite and most valuable resource, gets directed toward what actually matters to you. And when your energy flows in the direction of your genuine priorities, results follow in ways that surprised, scattered thinking never produces. The author says something in this chapter that is worth sitting with. The person who clears their mind steps outside of external control. The noise of social media, the relentless comparison culture, the pressure to perform and to be seen performing, all of it begins to lose its grip. You stop running someone else's race. You begin moving from your own internal compass. And when your direction is self-determined, the chaos around you cannot disorient you the way it once did. As you close this journey, you stop seeing your life as a collection of disconnected moments, some good, many frustrating, a few genuinely painful. You begin to see it as a coherent path. You understand that the setbacks had purpose. The stagnant periods offered something that forward motion could not. The painful chapters taught what the comfortable ones never could. You stop resenting what you have been through. You begin to see it as the necessary cost of becoming someone capable of what comes next. This is where the audiobook leaves you, not at a destination, but at a beginning. Every day slightly cleaner than the last. Every choice slightly more grounded. Every moment slightly more inhabited. If you can commit to that, not to perfection, but to honest, daily, conscious effort, then you have not simply detoxed your mind. You have reclaimed your life. Right now, as these final words reach you, something has already begun to shift. The fear, the overthinking, the comparison, the weight of a past you cannot change, they have a little less power over you than they did when you pressed play. Your mind is not your enemy. It never was. It was simply untended. And now you have begun tending it. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not when everything feels aligned. Now, the version of you that thinks clearly, acts decisively, and lives without the constant drag of mental noise, that version is not some distant ideal. It is what emerges when you do this work consistently. When you choose your own mind over the noise of the world every single day. If this journey resonated with you, if something in this content stirred something real, then subscribe to MindPsychology and leave a comment telling us which chapter landed most powerfully for you and what the first concrete step is that you are committing to today. We read every comment, and we will be back with more content exactly like this, the kind that does not just add to what you know, but genuinely shifts who you are. Your clearest, strongest, most grounded chapter starts right now.